To midday, a recent move by the Obama administration aims to aid immigrant entrepreneurs here legally by extending their visas as long as their business grows. Robert Loughran is a managing partner at Foster LLP, an immigration law firm here in Austin, to explain more about the startup visa proposal. It is great to have you here this morning.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start, if you could, by explaining a bit more detail how the program will work.
Well, this is President Obama coming in and taking a type of, it's not a visa necessarily, but an immigration status he had. And what's going to happen is that entrepreneurs, those who have a good idea but can also validate that through third parties, can go ahead and file an application, have parole approved, and have a 2-year status in the United States. If the business is successful and gets over $500,000 in revenue, then it will be eligible for a 3-year extension for a total of 5 years.
So let's say the 5 years is up and the business is growing and looking great. What happens then?
Well, that's why they have to have immigration attorneys involved. We have to take them into another immigration status. So we would just look at the full range of the Immigration Act and see whether they qualified for, let's say, EB-5 immigrant investor visa, or whether there's some other status that we could move them into.
There'll be another step at that point.
Right.
So will the so-called continued growth that you mentioned and the investment that must be shown by these entrepreneurs who are here legally, will it be a uniform thing, or will it be a case-by-case basis based on the business?
Well, everything the government does as far as immigration is case by case, and they'll make that point very clear. I think the most important part to know about this, I was wondering when this proposal was talked about 2 or 3 years ago, it doesn't fit very well with what the government does because it's very subjective. And so they came out with a $345,000 investment that must be made, or a $100,000 investment by a government entity. And so what they're saying is, the government adjudicators are not making a determination about winners and losers. What they're doing instead is they're looking to third parties to validate that this is a good investment. So I would call this the Shark Tank visa, if you want to call it that. But basically they have to go to like IC squared. In which case, since it's connected to the University of Texas, would be a $100,000 investment. They would have to get a grant or otherwise win a competition to show that their ideas will likely lead to a success. Or they have to go to the Austin Ventures of the world, or Capital Factory, or Tech Ranch, or anyone else who is determined to be a qualified investors. And again, we will have to prove what a qualified investor is, someone who has had multiple successes in this area in the past. And if those people are willing to give $345,000, that's the litmus test. So there's going to be many other details. Of course, there will be security background checks, and there will be qualifications. There's qualifications of the entrepreneur. There's qualifications of the investors, the venture capitalist, and those all will be considered case by case.
Okay, at its core, this is an immigration issue.
Absolutely.
What are the broader implications as we look towards the future as it relates to changes maybe in immigration policy when it comes to business?
Well, you know, this is the current administration. When they first took office 8 years ago, there was a memo prepared that had maybe 30 things that the president could do without Congress. And because he's been stalled, and because we came close, but no cigar as far as comprehensive immigration reform, all that this president or a future president can do is through these executive orders and taking existing programs and stretching them a little bit within their power. In order to really fix this, we need comprehensive immigration reform, and business immigration would be impacted significantly by comprehensive immigration reform. To put this in perspective, this is maybe 1,000 visas a year. In the first couple of years, I guess it's a couple hundred visas a year. So it's showing that this administration wants to do something for entrepreneurs and businessmen. It's sort of a nod back to Silicon Valley and to our entrepreneurial investors here in Austin. But it's not really changing the game. For that, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need Congress to vote on updating our 1965 law.
And this will be something interesting to follow as we go, not just here in Austin, but nationally as well.
Oh, I think everyone should be supportive of this.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. Absolutely.